Hey, everybody. I promised that I was going to put this up front after my last recording. That, of course, if you have not already, please join the Kickstarter, sign up for the pre Kickstarter, I guess is the right way, for Horror Not Hate, in which it's a horror anthology from Slow Feet Comics, which has a lot of terrific writers and artists involved. And there is a story by me. I would like to think of myself as a pretty good writer, collaborating with the great artist Rafael Navarro. And Horror Not Hate, all the proceeds will go to benefit civil rights groups. And so please, if you have not, again, already, please sign up to be alerted for when the Kickstarter launches. And if we do well and raise a amount of money, there may be a sequel anthology. I hope so. Just because the stories are good and the work is important. So thank you. Now we go on to this week's. We have a bit of an unusual situation. Uh, I certainly bought all my books from House of Secrets this week that I needed to, but Marvel and DC both did crossover events that were only on their apps. So on the Marvel Unlimited app, there is a Marvel DC Thor Shazam Infinity comic, number one, by Al Ewing, Jethro Morales, Eric Arcenega, pardon me, and Joe Sabino is the letterer. So, pardon me, you can see I left my glasses on so I don't have to look so close. Anyway, so it's an interesting crossover in which Thor ends up at the Rock of Eternity. Various things happen with that, and it's a decent story. Infinity Comics, when they're Infinity Comics first, by their nature, have a different kind of storytelling thing, and also because they are crossovers which can't necessarily tie into an established continuity. It's it's fun. You just have to pretend that they're in a different universe. I have a feeling that eventually Marvel and DC will print all these, but for now, trying to drive things to their apps, which for good or ill for myself, I have both apps because over on the DC Infinite app was DC Marvel The Flash Fantastic Four by Jeremy Adams, a writer, art Adrian Gutierrez, colors Romulo Fajardo Jr., letters Josh Reed. And both Tom Brevoort and Mark Basso reached across the aisles to be consulting editors, and Katie Kubert and Andrew Marino as editors. It's interesting, and what it calls to mind for me, it's Grodd invading the Baxter building, uh, is I had to question how Barry Allen became a super genius who could match wits with Reed Richards, but it's a comic. And again, it's in a continuity that can't be ours, and that's fine. There's no necessarily a great explanation, but they're fun. Again, hoping that they put this in print because I don't know that everybody should be driven to these apps in which they don't call them that these are in that kind of scroll thing. They're meant for the web. And that's why I think the stories that I have read that are designed that way, they read differently because they're intended for a different audience. And if this means, you get access, you get new readers in because it's a format they realize, that's terrific. I mean, it's good, right? This being a comics lover, you want new readers, you want younger readers, and that also means that sometimes the stories aren't really going to be aimed at you, and that's okay. And even when I say at you, this is assuming that people watching this are close to my age. Actually, I kind of hope not. I hope younger people are like going, "Who's this old guy talking about comics?" Well, I'm an old guy talking about comics. I decided I can't rebrand the site, but maybe I'm just old man fanboy. I mean, we had old man Logan, we had old man Hawkeye. It's okay, it makes sense. So anyway, books I actually bought at House of Secrets this week. First up, it's a strangely heavy J. Michael Straczynski week. A couple weeks ago, had that there was a book from Dark Horse by him. I bought Marvel Comics by J. Michael Straczynski. First up, 1776. Again, point out the rules are I don't read everything in the stack I buy. I'm doing this to justify all the comics that I buy, but I read a few. Because some are first issues and I can just catch them. Some are series that I have managed to catch up on, and some are just fun. Anyway, this is by Straczynski with pencils by a lot of people. Sean Damian Hill, Ron Lim, happy to see him doing a Marvel book again. Jay Leiston is an inker. Robert Poggi is an inker, and colorist is Alex Sinclair, with letterer being Joe Caramagna, who is good. And cover artist is Pete Woods. This is basically taking that a villain who shall remain unnamed at this point is trying to alter history, but from our time, her time. Oh, I revealed it's to her. Alter history, but it's from 1774 and in a logical place in their time. And the ghost of Ben Franklin goes forward in time to contact Doctor Strange and get a team together to go back to 1776 and make sure the American Revolution goes forward as it should. There's some interesting thinking behind this. And let me put aside for the second that, man, the ghost of Ben Franklin is like the most abused character in Marvel history. Like, it's always him. Why? Anyway, a man ahead of his time. It's an interesting thinking about how you would necessarily, if you were a villain, make sure that the United States doesn't come to pass without destroying all the people that would eventually be born. An interesting take. The art teams alternate, and it's a little inconsistent, but it's an interesting story. I'm not 100% hooked because, of course, I know how it's going to end. We're going to be okay because it has to be. But I have a feeling that what I'm going to stick with this is J. Michael Straczynski maybe having some commentary to make about our founding fathers, about the American mythology, and I'm down with that. So that's good. So that's one. 1776. This I picked up number 2 of a book called The Amazing Spider-Man Torn by J. Michael Straczynski. So I had to go back and get number 1 of Amazing Spider-Man Torn by J. Michael Straczynski. And the artists are Per Perez, and color artist is Guru of EFX, and the letterer is Joe Caramagna again. Gotta be honest, this didn't grab me so much. Like, when I pick up a Spider-Man book, it's usually not part of the regular ongoing series. It's one-offs like this where, oh, there's some interesting creators involved. It was enough to be a mini-series. This is clearly sometime in Peter Parker's past because both Gwen and Mary Jane are alive. They're back in college. And Gwen Stacy and Mary Jane Watson, by the way, and Harry Osborn. It's a good time for Peter Parker stories, right? And in particular, knowing that there's another Spider-Man movie coming in which it's more Peter in the college years. I have no insight into the film. I just know, we love going back to that time period because the tragedies aren't as many, I guess, and it's okay. Again, it's another one. So I'm just going to say I wouldn't say wait for the trade, or in this case, I'll probably finish it up on the app when it comes on the app. Just because, yeah, it didn't grab me, but that's okay. Another one that I'm kind of with. American Caper. This was now all over last week when I was at Revengeo Comics and Pinball, and the comic creators block party. Dark Horse did help sponsor with American Caper was the book they were trying to launch. Not trying, they were launching. It came out this week, and I should also say, with distribution being what it is, it's quite possible that just because it showed up at House of Secrets this week doesn't mean it didn't come out earlier someplace else, or that something that came out at House of Secrets this week might not make it to your local shop until the next week or the week after, because things are a little bit crazy. But anyway, American Caper. This is by Dan Hauser with producer and additional writing by a person named Laszlo. Story layouts and pencils by David Lapham, who had made a splash many, many years ago with Stray Bullets. Uh, Colorist is Lee Lawridge. We see his name a lot here. Finishes by Chris Anderson, and letterer is Nate Picos. Now, the interesting thing here is that Dan Hauser, I did not know, was the guy who wrote is the narrative to Red Dead Redemption. So he's a gamer, and this is Absurd Ventures presents American Caper. And Absurd Ventures is his company that is going into multimedia, looking for film scripts, television. Not looking for. I'm sure Dan Hauser is developing these things himself, but he's also going into his own video game studio. So it was interesting. I just kind of out there. This is a cynical book. I guess the older that I get, the more I get strangely drawn back into crime stories. Now, like I grew up. I mean, it was coming of age cinematically, et cetera, 80s, early 90s, coming out of college. And so, there were a lot of crime movies that were pretty decent. And then it became thanks to Pulp Fiction or really to Reservoir Dogs, became a lucrative and cheap genre to fill. So I kind of fell away again, superheroes, fantasy, horror, etc. And now I'm drawn back partially because of really enjoying what I've read from Hard Case Crime, the imprint from Titan, and that I've got friends that now are writing crime stuff. This, like I said, it is very cynical. It's in Colorado. It's kind of, I think, satirizing, exploring, all the hypocrisies of the so-called, perfect American lives and the American dream. So I recommend it. It's a little guarded recommendation because I'm not quite sure where it's going to go, but I'm intrigued. So I'm in. American Caper, number one. One that I just reviewed a couple weeks ago, but the second issue came out. I knew I was behind when I picked this up at Golden Apple. Death to Pachuco by Henry Barajas. Wait, let me get the full thing. Art by Rachel Merrill. Color art by Lee Lowridge again, and edited by Will Dennis, and Henry did design and Revenge of. Nice guy, and an intriguing, important book. I mentioned before, it just kind of sucks to feel like everything old is new again, and it's not the good things. Racism obviously not gone away, and so my very little apolitical comment is, when people say this is not who we are, well, it's clear that for quite some time, yes, it is, if not all time, we have othered people who did not look like us. And when I say look like us, you know what I'm saying. And it's crap. But it was happening in the 40s, it was happening in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. Maybe in the early aughts, we had this brief shining moment of being able to fool ourselves again. And that's all it's really been, is we're occasionally able to fool ourselves into thinking that everything is hunky-dory. And then it's not. So I retreat into books then like this. Superman, the Kryptonite Spectrum, which, okay, I'm going to grant you, it's Black Label, which makes it automatically so much easier to just pretend, just to know it's not fitting in any particular continuity. This is issue 4, book 4. This is by the creative team of Ice Cream Man, which is a pretty interesting horror series, and so it's completely out of continuity, but so that's W. Maxwell Prince, the writer, Martin Morazzo, the artist, Chris O'Halloran, the colorist, and the letterer is listed as Good Old Neon. I've kept up with this book because it's just kind of fun, a very different take, and in which several new types of kryptonite have been discovered. And it's funny that they released this over at the same time in Dan Slott's Superman Unlimited book, where kryptonite is massive and everywhere. It's a threat again to Superman after they eliminated it for several years. But finding the fun ones again, remembering those wacky stories in the 50s and 60s where red kryptonite mostly 60s. Red Kryptonite would give Superman a lion head or an ant head or whatever. And in this case, it's made him a child, it's made him giant and a little dumb, and also had some trouble processing time, which I thought was an interesting one. This one goes into the fifth dimension. I love a good Mixocypitilic story, uh, and creates a new, and it's right on the cover, so no spoiler here, an equivalent to Batman's Batmite, who is called Cal Elf. It's good stuff. It's just fun, and of course Lex is scheming, and you know it's sometimes nice to just read a Superman story in which it's that simple. Okay, so now to the ones that I have not read yet, but I'm catching up on the series. Batman Gotham by Gaslight, A League for Justice. I'm a sucker for these stories, no question. This is by Andy Diggle, Leandro Fernandez, and Matt Hollingsworth. It's an Elseworlds book. So I appreciate once again, as if you didn't realize that a steampunk Justice League is not in continuity, but it'll show up on an alternate Earth in ways that I do not know yet. So please, let's not even make my brain break. Dick Tracy number 13. I spotlit the Halloween special a couple of weeks ago, so I like this. Alex Segura and Michael Moresi as the writers, artist Geraldo Borges, with a creative consultant, Chantel Amy Osman, colorist is Mark Englert, and letterer is Jim Campbell. Now, I'm not exactly sure what the role of Chantel Amy Osman is as a creative consultant, because I know that Alex Segura on his own is a great crime fiction writer. So I don't know how they put this book together from Mad Cave Studios, but it's a fun book. It's good. And as I said earlier, it's like, oh, this is a way that positions Dick Tracy perfectly for the 21st century, even though it's taking place in the 40s. I am behind with Jimmy Palmiotti and Pasquale Quilano on art, and Jorge Sutil and Jeff Eckleberry on letters. And you're dying to know what book this is. I still have not read the first issue, but I bought it because I trust Jimmy Palmiotti. It's Blue Falcon and Dynamut. I don't know, soft spot for the character. I really hope I like these books when I catch up. So there we go. This one, I just need to read this week's. I could have, I should have, I don't know why. Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, issue 4. I think that's it. I think I haven't read the third issue yet. I have to get to that place. So it's the sequel called Rite of Spring. This is a creepy book with, I mean, it's the aesthetics of Richard Scarry. What I saw becoming interesting was there are still feral animals, and so I don't know if Patrick Horvath, who did this with, I'm sorry, he's wrote and draw, I know, um, and written and drawn by Patrick Horvath, which IDW says breakout writer artist, and yeah, last year Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees was a terrific debut series. He's moved on to other things, but revisited as in an interview with me at LA Comic Con, I guess last year. Uh, he said he would, and he has. And this is also with Hassan Osmane Elhau as on coloring. And again, as always, if I mispronounce names, please someone correct me. So I'm behind, but it's good. Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. Spider-Man Noir by Eric Larson, number 2. Eric Larson, Andrea Brocardo as artist, and Rochelle Rosenberg as guest. I think I saw her on something else last week. And Joe Sabino on letterer. And I kind of like this Spider-Man Noir character, and I know the reason that Marvel's doing this is because there's a Prime television series, I think live action, with Nicolas Cage as Spider-Man Noir, because that's who played it, voiced him in the Into the Spider-Verse movie, and it's interesting. I'm a little behind. I'm actually back on that app reading the previous, I think, previous Spider-Man Noir miniseries, and that's good stuff too. It's fun. It's got its own continuity. Happy to see Eric Larson back at Marvel. He's a good storyteller, so I'm in. I read the first issue. I did not read this yet. Uh, Here's one what I earlier said, like, not every comic has to be for me, and probably shouldn't be. Every comic shouldn't be for me, but this is one Supergirl number 7 I picked up, and it's by Sophie Campbell is the writer artist, and Tamara Bonvillain Villain is the colorist, and Becca Carey is the letterer. Tamara Bonvillain, by the way, did some terrific coloring work on my friend Tony Parker's Medusa graphic novel last year. So she's good stuff. But why I picked this up was really because somebody called me out and said, "What's the new Supergirl like?" So I bought the first issue, and then I found myself buying the second issue and the third issue. And why I say this isn't for me, and yet I'm still enjoying it, is despite being part of the All In initiative from DC, this Supergirl does not necessarily, no, not at all, really match the one who you're going to see in the DC universe next summer. The film, which is based on Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, and which is a great graphic novel that was a great 12-issue maxi series, mini series, whatever you want to call it. But this is, if you know a tween girl and she wants to read comics, this is great. It's, I guess, YA, fiction involving the history. It's got some continuity things with the, Candor's there, and I think it's a couple of characters that are sort of borrowed from the Silver Age, and Streaky the Super Cat, in addition to Crypto the Super Dog. At least Crypto's on the cover, and Streaky is a fun character in and of himself, and so it's a delightful book. I'm not the target audience, but I recognize when a book is good, and this is a good book. Supergirl, currently. Here, Aquaman. I'm very behind. Aquaman number 11, and the covers beg a question for me: is, do you feel that Aquaman looks better with or without the beard? This has been bothering me. I read the first arc again. This is an all-in book, and I just noticed I don't know. I think some of the better Aquaman stories, he's bearded, and yet I don't respond well to that because that's not the Aquaman I initially had. I had the Mego action figure, and I had Super Friends, and a Big Little book, Aquaman Scourge of the Seas. So I know it's a silly aesthetic thing, but again, I know that he gets the beard, and not for. I'm sure part of it is licensing. Look, this is the reality. The DC universe are characters that get slapped on toys and coloring books and pajamas, and I know that's kind of recursive, reductive, but you know what I mean. And so the classic Ultraman, the classic Aquaman to me is beardless. So I don't know. I think it's a question worth just engendering some debate. So please let me know what you think. Okay. And that's editor at fanboyplanet.com. It's editor at fanboyplanet.com. Next up is Redcoat. Last but not least, I'm a couple of issues behind in Redcoat, which was just announced as being adapted to film this week. This is Redcoat 15 by Jeff Johns, Brian Hitch, Andrew Curry, Brad Anderson, and Rob Lee. And I'm sorry, I was remiss on Aquaman. Is Jeremy Adams. We've heard him before. He was the writer on the Fantastic Four Flash crossover, I believe. Nimit Malavia on art, Rex Locus on colors, and Dave Sharp on letters. Sorry, backtracking to Aquaman. And then back here to Redcoat. I love Redcoat. One, I love Brian Hitch art, but I like, again, just like the 1776 series from Marvel, it's kind of uh, deconstructing American mythology. And I like the character of Simon Pure, who is roguish and charming and definitely doesn't want to be a hero, but keeps ending up being a hero. And it all is going to add up to something for Ghost Machine, but you don't have to read every Ghost Machine book, and probably, they don't all cross over, but those that are connected, they're not connected obviously at this point. I think we did have where Junkyard Joe, who is basically uh, GI robot. Uh, it's Jeff John's take on it. That's okay. We have seen Junkyard Joe go into the pages of Geiger, but Redcoat, how it's going to tie into everything is really intriguing to me. But in the meantime, I'm just enjoying the ride. So absolutely, Redcoat. And then I picked up a trade paperback, which I picked up just because, I mean, I knew this miniseries existed, so I got to read it all at once. Turtles of Grayskull, um, because of my age. Uh, both the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles mania and He-Man mania were a little bit behind me by the time they hit. You know, I confess, and I have confessed many times, I used to watch He-Man and the Masters of the Universe on my black and white TV in my dorm room in college because I thought Orko was funny. But I recognized all the flaws in the series, but also all the strengths in the series. And I get why people like the characters, even if some of their character names are silly. But combining these two is like, I got to know how. And this is by Tim Seeley, Freddie E. Williams II, Andrew Dahlhaus, and World Design. Not quite sure where that fits, but this was just I read the first chapter, which I guess was the first issue, and I'm not sure if there was a story leading into it that I just eluded me, and Dark Horse chose not to include in the book. But it's still interesting, or fun to have the turtles. You catch up. This is great storytelling. Is that you don't necessarily need to know a lot of the history, uh, and they kind of, if there is a previous story, they blip past it really fast. Look, this is the situation. Boom. So it's fun. So sometimes I buy books just because they're fun, which is obvious, because I will call them out when they are. So, that's it. And once again, please, if there's books that you're reading that you think I should, or you disagree with something, please let me know. Editor at fanboyplanet.com. And said up top, if you have not yet signed up to be notified of the Kickstarter for Horror Not Hate, please do so. And in the meantime, use your powers for good.